There is no time like the present.
We're in it.
And I love presents.
Boo.
I do, though.
That's true. Who doesn't?
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Between Two Pints. I'm your host, Rob, and with me today is Christopher.
Hello.
Or Chris.
I'm good either way.
All right, Chris is easygoing.
I answered as Stewie as well.
Well, Chris is here to talk about a number of things, including the Ghostbusters fan club, which I'm a fan of, but he's going to eventually talk about Kaiju-A-GoGo, which is a really cool video game, and you should try it on Steam. We'll have a link to it below. You should check it out. I spent like 3 hours playing today, and actually there was a point where I'm like, you messaged me, and I was like, I hope he's canceling. I just want to keep playing.
I have mixed emotions about that.
I'm sorry. It's brutal honesty.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do.
And yeah, I guess we'll start with how we know each other.
We're Canadian.
Yeah, we know everybody in
Canadians
Canada.
know one another.
I know Steve
6
in
degrees.
Quebec.
Yeah, 6 degrees of Steve in Quebec.
But yeah, we know Todd, who was actually my first guest on the show. And Todd Whalen is a big member of the Ghostbusters fan club of it. What is your official title?
Ghostbusters of British Columbia.
And those guys are really cool. Like, Ghostbusting, the fan club, the cosplaying of Ghostbusters, to me, is actually one of the most heterosexual cosplays out there. Like, there isn't anything manlier than Ghostbusters.
And yet there's quite a bit of women involved.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but
No.
you must be irresistible to women in those outfits.
Yeah, except I don't have one. That's the
But you're married, so your wife is probably happy with that.
Well, maybe. I'm a bit more old school. The guys ran into one another when, and Todd probably mentioned it, when Dan Aykroyd came to town. And I had, for the decade previous, been running a Ghostbusters website.
Oh, cool.
And that's how we all kind of... So they were in uniform, so Dan Aykroyd was like, come on up, get your picture taken. And I'm just sitting in line going... But yeah, I got to know them that way, and they formed the Ghostbusters British Columbia. And I'm a member of it without a uniform or a pack.
I'm sure it'll happen one day.
It may change, actually. I'm going to the Calgary Comic-Con, and I think I may finally get the uniform up and running.
That'd be really cool. I know that if I had the slightest excuse, I think it's better than Stormtrooper armor, to be honest. It's like less anonymous, too.
Yeah, right? Well, and people personalize it. That's the best part. Like, have you ever seen Todd every Ghostbuster fan who's ever jumped into a uniform has personalized the uniform in some way, which is really kind of cool.
I think it lends itself to the air of creativity.
We all need action figures.
But we're not here to talk about Ghostbusters. We may get you and Todd back to talk about the Ghostbusters movie.
We should.
Which is
this summer.
And it has all women casts, so I guess I'm proved wrong again.
Yeah.
But I think that's also awesome. I think in fact, isn't Thor their Janine?
Oh, yeah. Essentially, yeah. It's Chris Hemsworth is playing their secretary, and apparently he's hilarious.
That's fantastic. But now we got to focus on the issue, because we've already been drinking this wonderful vanilla raspberry ale from Storm Brew. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we're going to talk about Kaiju-A-GoGo, which is... I'm going to describe it, and maybe you won't like it, but... So it's... I got it. It's on Steam, which I love. Steam is my favorite platform for buying games. And it feels very much like a Super Nintendo game. Like, the graphics are really cool. They're cartoony. I got it a year ago, and I tried it then, and there was only one monster and scientist combo you could have, Ginormosaurus. Mm-hmm. And I liked it, but I was like, nah, let's see, I'll come back to it. I came back to it yesterday, and I found out there's two more. There's Armageddon. And the shrub monster, which is basically like from the Little Shop of Horrors on steroids.
Yes, Shrub Ziggurat.
Shrub Ziggurat.
Or Shrubby.
So it's also a Cthulhu reference.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Oh, our games are always filled with Cthulhu references.
But Shrubby is awesome. Wow, it's a lot of fun. He throws down like little turrets, which are little the game is so amazing now. You should try it. I bet it runs on your netbook. So
yeah, that's the advantage of going this retro look or this simple look that people keep talking about. Is the overhead on machines is really low. So it's the golden age for PC gaming, because it doesn't matter what machine you have, there's probably a really fun game that you can pick up relatively cheap and have a hell of a time playing on any of PC you have.
Well, even before rediscovering Kaiju-A-GoGo, I've been playing things like Sunless Sea and Darkest Dungeon, and those are other games that, like, yeah, I can play. I have a really good netbook, but I can play them on my netbook when I'm on the road. And
yeah, well, that's just a product of indie game development, is that you're a small team with not a lot of money. So you're not going to be able to make, like, the Arkham Knight level AAA super graphics. So everybody tends to just simplify down, which is nice in a way. Like, it's kind of like it's kind of nice to work. It's always nice to work creatively within a limits and boundaries because it forces you to think more creatively.
And actually, I was going to branch on that because we were talking earlier while we were trying this beer. But you actually ran a Kickstarter, a successful Kickstarter for Kaiju-A-GoGo.
Not Kickstarter.
Oh, Indiegogo.
Indiegogo.
I've run it. We ran an Indiegogo for season 2 of Standard Action. I'm a big fan of Indiegogo, and I love how you can have the option of keeping the funds even if you aren't completely successful.
Yeah, it's a different model, and crowdfunding is still relatively young enough that everybody's coming in with different products and different approaches.
Patreon, we talked about that.
Yeah, Patreon's pretty good. We tried Kickstarter on two of them. On the basis of, well, that's where it's the 800-pound gorilla of crowdfunding, but it is you got to work the magic and try and figure it out. So we did a couple of tests and did pretty good, but never hit the goal, which is part of working it out. And yeah,
you guys, like, it's a great game. I played it, and like, fuck, I'm swearing here, people. It's good. Like, it's one of those gems. Like, right now, I have a friend, and I'm trying to set her up with a computer. I've got an old PC, so I'm like, basically have a list of games. She's never owned a computer besides a MacBook. I just tried to make a list of games that I could maybe possibly, if they came on sale on Steam, or she wanted them herself, like I could, get her to play it on my computer. That, yeah, these would work on this computer. And Sunless Sea is on that, Darkest Dungeon, and now, yeah, Kaiju-A-GoGo is definitely one of those like short list of games. Like, hey, it's fun. It's it's not a $60 game. It's very enjoyable. You can easily lose like a day to it.
Yeah, I think it's at the moment $15 or something like that. 3 monsters, and we're going to do a 4th coming soon.
And that was actually, you talked about limitations and creativity.
Right.
You had an Indiegogo backer who paid some money to develop a monster idea.
Yeah, monsters. We opened it up to monsters and cities because part of the game is. Should I briefly describe it for people? That...
Sure, give them.
So XCOM, the old XCOM, not the new run-around first-person shooter one, but old XCOM meets Evil Genius. You're an evil genius. You have your island base. You build your giant monster, and then in inverse XCOM style, in XCOM you sit around waiting for the aliens to land and attack cities, and you go fight them. In this one, you're the guy sending the threat to the cities out. So the game world has at least 50 real-world cities.
Vancouver is on them.
Vancouver's on them,
absolutely,
and as is our office.
Do we get bonus points or negative points for smashing your office in Vancouver?
Oh, it's one of the buildings that gives you special resources. So yes, if you go, certain buildings like landmarks and things like that do spit out more resources.
Really?
And that's the whole point of the game. You send your monster out, stomp on city. It's twofold. You want to stomp it enough that they give up, and then you're ruler of them. And you also want to gather resources from them to then level up your monster, give them more powers and things they can shoot and stomp, etc., sort of thing. So
and yeah, so each monster isn't just a monster. If I like, when picking Shrubby, I have like a sidekick who like tells me things and status updates, and he's like a Greenpeace guy, nerdy hippie guy. I don't want to offend anybody here, but and then the main, like, the evil genius behind the shrub monster is this nerdy girl, and like there's a whole like kind of feel behind it. But you had someone actually donate money to design a monster.
That's where it came out to. One of the perks was you could design a monster. We put it in there, didn't think anybody would go for it, and turned out some people did like that, as well as city. So there's a couple of cities that you wouldn't necessarily think, let's do that one. We picked Toronto and Vancouver and New York. There's all these ones.
They're
Tokyo.
Never attacked on Independence Day.
Yeah, Canada is fine. Yeah, there's a couple of cities in there because people were like willing to help back the game, and in return the reward was they got to pick the city. And one of them was the monster, and the next monster going out is the one that the backer paid for.
And it sounds really cool. I am enamored with Shrubby, but this set monster that you told me about, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about it, but
no,
he sounds like the coolest. But yeah, no, it's a backer design monster. Is pretty interesting and unique and cool.
Yeah. We basically asked what would you like, and he had 2 options, and our response was, why not both? Yeah, it's every monster is unique in the way they play. That's kind of like the what we like to do in our games is. That's how you make it more accessible to more people, is you give people with different play styles, different ways to get into the game and play it. So I think you and I were talking at one point that Ginormosaurus, which is kind of a mechanical Godzilla-type monster. Not necessarily. It didn't really jingle your bells, but then this idea of a giant plant monster that spit out little seedlings
turrets
that then started shooting and all that. You were all over it.
Yeah, and to me, actually, in playing that, like, I can see myself in a day or two of playing it, like, oh, okay, now that I've got a real handle on the mechanics and strategies of, like, running a giant monster, as if I didn't already. Yeah, like, now that I've done that, actually, Ginormosaurus is more interesting because maybe, like, to me, at least my playstyle, he feels like he might be a bit more challenging or something. Like, it's...
Yeah, well, so Ginormosaurus is all about the energy because he's a robot monster, whereas Shrubby is all about the biomatter that you pick up.
Right.
So it just depends. Like, each monster has their pros and cons, their pluses and minuses, their strengths and weaknesses, and each one appeals differently to different people. And even within each monster, I think there's over 90 abilities per monster that you can develop throughout the game. The
skill trees.
The skill tree.
Kind of...
The skill web. It's just this giant web of abilities that you can... And the thing there is, again, like, people have... I like stomping on things. Well, go for the power ones. Or I like shooting at things. Well, go for those ones.
So... we usually try to reserve a little bit of time here. Between Two Pints started as like getting my filmmaker buddies out and getting them drunk because they love that. But usually we talk about like speculative, like, oh, if you had $1 million to make your next thing, blah blah blah. So say like after filming this, because Between Two Pints goes out to so many people and has so many viewers, you go out there and some very rich man is like, I will give you $5 million to make a sequel to Kaiju-A-GoGo. What kind of things would go into that?
For $5 million. For $5 million, we'd make the sequel to Kaiju-A-GoGo. Actually, the expansion to Kaiju-A-GoGo.
Yeah, or okay, well, like, yeah, what's a budget that would be good, that would be happy but reasonable?
Well, you offered $5 million. I'm going to spend the $5 million.
All right.
So within that $5 million, we would do the expansion to Kaiju-A-GoGo, which we actually mentioned when we did the Indiegogo crowdfunding.
Right.
Which was Monster Island. So It kind of shifts a little bit to slightly Pokemon-esque in that you can have more than one monster at the same time.
That sounds great.
So if a monster gets really badly damaged and you bring them back rather than sitting around twiddling your thumbs waiting for them to head out again, you can go to your pet, pull another monster out, sick them on the world sort of thing. So we do that. And then with all the money left over, because really, budget-wise to do that, it's not a huge thing.
How big is your team?
It's a 10-person team.
And are you one of the 10 or 11?
I'm one of the 10.
Okay.
Yeah. Although I do very little direct hands-on these days. I slowly turned from a designer into a business guy.
That must be sad for you in some ways.
Well, I get to sit around and stare at walls more.
I've met other directors and filmmakers who become producers, and they're always like,
a little sad.
Don't do it.
So the thing is we got so much stuff in the back burners, and as an indie dev, and we like to work a little lean and creatively and all that. Man, with the money left, we'd probably do some follow-ups to some of the stuff before, but we have a game that's been sitting on the back burner for most of the 12 years of the company. And things shifted around, like the market shifted, the company shifted, the way money flowed from publishers and all that shifted. We haven't landed it yet, but people are so in love with the idea, and we love the idea.
What is it?
North Star. Did you ever play any of the old PC? We love the old PC games, like old PC games. So this Kaiju-A-GoGo is reminiscent of Crush, Crumble, and Chomp. There's a whole bunch of games back in the classic days of PC gaming where you wandered the stars, trading. Like you'd land planets, you'd buy goods, sell goods. And
I remember one I really liked was Privateer.
Privateer?
And that's not even that old.
No. There's a couple. What's the one I'm trying? I can't even think of it.
But so basically a 4X,
keep wanting to say Sundog, and I don't even know if that's it.
Like a trader exploration space game.
Right. And that was pre-Firefly. We live in a post Millennium Falcon, post Firefly era, right? The idea of being on the edge of the space
and on the edge
trader.
Of bankruptcy.
Yeah, right. So the whole idea that one came out a while ago, and that we'd very much like to do is to make that game where we use things we've learned. There's stuff we would probably put into action, like Kaiju-A-GoGo has builds your city slightly random. Like we lay out the city, but it builds up.
Oh, neat! So
we do stuff like that to give you. So instead of having there's only 10 guys, we can only do 10 planets. No, make the procedurally generate planets so that when you land there, they have a variety of. Mix and match, a toolkit to draw from and create unique places. That's what I'd spend the rest of the money on.
It's neat. and now I'm going to make you sad because you're a real game developer. But I've been studying Unity 3D for fun. I got like a Udemy course for $10 right now.
Why would that make me sad?
Well, I know a lot of real game developers like, Unity, it's it's like the Flash, which I used to be a Flash developer. It's the Flash of like game development.
And a lot of games come out on it. Like I can't bat it. We don't work in it. Like right now.
Yeah, what do you work in?
Well, Kaiju-A-GoGo was built in-house on the back of something called Cocos 2D.
Okay.
Which is a very inexpensive and accessible open source kind of engine. Like I said, if you're trying to do 3D stuff, but if you want to do these simple little mobile, and it's good multi-platform.
Oh, cool!
So
that's really great. That's one of the reasons I like Unity is even though I know it's resource intensive.
Yeah.
If I make something simple, I can throw it on my tablet and have a laugh.
Well, actually, that's also what I want to spend part of the $5 million on is putting the Pit and Kaiju-A-GoGo onto tablets. So. But yeah, we use Cocos 2D for that, and then what we're working on now, which I can't talk about, we're actually working Unreal.
Unreal, but now they've actually taken a cue from Unity, which I love, is they have like a free version-ish that you can download and start learning. And for me, like, I can mess around in my spare time. I don't go out on Friday nights. I'm not cool. But I spent Friday night doing a Unity tutorial on how to make Space Defenders, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, and that's actually not them taking a cue from Unity so much as taking a cue from the industry as a whole. Because it's shifted a lot. Like I said, we've been around 12 years, and the business, what do you call it, the model, the paper, the business plan that I wrote up way back when is so out of date, it's not even funny. Like, it is 3 or 4 versions behind, and I've had to update it because in games it takes you the better part of a year to 2 years, depending on how big of a game you're making, to get your product out. And in those 2 years, technology and the market has shifted around you. And sure enough, the iPhone came along and everything changed. Now it's a mobile world. And mobile gaming alone has changed everything. Even PC gaming and the way extra content and all that goes out onto consoles has been informed by mobile. So.
Well, it's interesting, like, when I did my computer science degree, they talked about in the first computers were like the size of a building. And they couldn't imagine more than 12 computers in the world.
Yeah.
And now, and it's interesting because, they had dumb terminals. And everybody thought that all the processing power would be in one place and that you'd have dumb terminals. And then it's actually gone the other way where now everybody has these, super computers in their pocket that are far better than a Super Nintendo back in our day.
Yeah.
But we got to wrap it up. We're running out of time. You and your friends have been this game developing company. Sorry, what's the name of the company?
Kerberos Productions with a K.
Kerberos, not Cerberus?
No, we went Greek.
All right.
Yeah.
So Kerberos, and you said you've been around for 12 years?
12 years.
So what are, what's one piece of advice you'd give your past self? Like maybe a year into it. You're like me, you've done some Udemy courses.
A piece of advice would be keep your eyes open because a shift would come. When we went out the door, it was the old model, which is very similar to books. You do a little work, you'd show off your idea, you'd pitch it to various publishers, and one publisher would eventually, if you're lucky, go, great, make that, and they'd pay for it. And you wouldn't have to do anything because the publisher would then promote the game, and by extension of promoting the game, promote you, because you'd have your logo on every box. How many boxes do you see in stores anymore? It's gone, right? And then not only that, in the digital world, since everybody moved there, it's a noise of people. So there is a point that happened about 4 or 5, I don't know exactly when, but a few years ago, where really we should have shifted into promoting ourselves. Like
going on drinking shows, like Between Two Pints.
Yeah. Or anything. We jumped on social media pretty quick, and actually we didn't do too bad in that our website, we very early, from day one, had message boards, and very unique to the time, although it's quite commonplace now, we all talked to the fans. All the devs were there from the top on down. If people had questions, we'd interact. And that kind of served us well, to the point. But then social media came along, and now, you got to be on Twitter, you got to be on social media, and you got to figure out how to promote yourself and get your name out there, because somewhere along the way, we started having to take care of ourselves in terms of financing and publishing the games. And that last missing piece of the puzzle, I've explained this to people before. The things you needed was you needed somebody to pay for the game to get it made. You needed somebody to put it into stores and into the hands of the consumer, and you needed to market it. And the only thing that really, along the way, Steam came along, and then we kind of found our own ways to fund it one way or another. So we made our own games. We had a ways to get it into consumer hands. That worked great. Marketing it was the biggest problem. And it only got worse in the last couple of years because mobile gaming has made it, and the blooming of indie development has made it so that there's so many people out there. You basically need to almost like mobile gaming, have to pay to get eyeballs to see what you got before they even plunk money down, sort of thing. And none of us were really trained for that. So that's the only thing I can say to new devs. Well, actually, rule 1, don't go into game development. It's hard. That's the same thing with any creative thing, right? You have to love it.
And to be
you
honest,
have to love it.
I have, after playing Kaiju-A-GoGo, my only piece of advice before we wrap up is hats. You gotta take a cue from Valve. You should sell hats for your kaiju.
We have skins. We have skins though.
And skins.
I'll send you a key.
Multiplayer. You do need multiplayer because the skin in multiplayer, it's like you're
showing it off to somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah.
No. Well, that's part of the expansion, is we might get to that point too, where you can train up and pitch your guys against one another. But that's only if somebody gives us $5 million first.
Thanks, Chris, for joining me and talking about an amazing video game, a Vancouver developer. Is it Christopher Stewart?
I'm good with that.
Okay, yeah, but Chris, because he's laid back, you should check out his game. Seriously, it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun today. I recommend Shrubby. There's two other monsters.
Do you want some keys to give out to your viewers? I'll get some keys.
Oh wow, this is the first.
Not for all of you.
No,
but a few to give away.
But in fact, if you leave a comment on what you think is another good game for like a low power computer, we will get you a Kaiju-A-GoGo key, and you can stomp
some cities.
Cheers.
Cheers.